y'all? Welcome to another episode of I Am, my video blog series. So listen, we are going to do a breakdown of my EP cover. Let's get into it. This EP cover means so much to me because it took like over a year to fully come to fruition. And beyond that, there's 7 figures of me, and they all encompass a different part of who I am. So I just want to break down real quick how we even got through this process. Huge shout out to my girl Ashley for doing the interview, and I do want to apologize. We were outside. There's a little feedback with the mic, but we're gonna make it shake, right? Before we get into the interview, I'm gonna do a quick breakdown of what each figure means to me. So there's community organizer Chelsea, right? So that's me when I'm holding the Black Lives Matter sign and, you know, the fist in the air. For me, during the quarantine, I just took a whole different outlook of my community. I came across what's called a community fridge, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, and I help a lot with that fridge. We source food, find different resources for people to be fed in the community, different forms of food justice. So that's what that means for me. The artist Chelsea, of course, is the performer. It's the expression of who I am as an artist. That's with the guitar, right? I have a picture of me in the album cover with a Cincinnati Reds jacket. You can't tell, but it's Cincinnati Reds. Of course, I'm gonna rep my city. You know, it's Cincinnati all day, baby. That's my foundation. That's a part of who I am. So I had to rep Cincinnati for sure. Health conscious Chelsea. There's a picture of me. I don't know if you can really see it well, but I'm holding an apple and there's a jump rope around my neck. I've always been pretty health conscious, but especially during the pandemic, I really got more into it. I became vegetarian in February, and there's just a lot of like diabetes and cancer in my family. And in my mind, I'm like, I know these things run in my family, but let me try to do the best that I can, taking care of the body that God blessed me with, to just live a long and prosperous life. Okay, so in the back, you see me holding a trumpet. I have on a marching band hat and glasses. That's marching band / high school Chelsea. Honestly, in my family, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, a lot of people back home, a lot of people in my family still look at me as the kid from high school. And that's just how they see me. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Sometimes it can, because you can't see beyond who this person has evolved to be. But that represents high school Chelsea. Off to the side, I'm holding a big bottle of Jack Daniels. That's sexy Chelsea. She makes an appearance every once in a while. Like, I think that, if I was to be completely honest, I think that I'm slowly growing more into my own in that realm. I've changed a lot from when I was in high school, early 20s to even now. So I'm still coming into my own. Just to be completely honest, I'm still coming into my own when it comes to, you know, getting a little sexy on or whatever. But let me tell you, when I step out, I step out. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? Of course, in the center of it all, with the hands, with the halo, is spiritual. It represents a few things for me. That God is the center of my life, regardless. Regardless of all the chaos around me, God is the center of my life. And spirituality is very important to me. My faith is very important to me. However, the whole thing culminating into the Last Supper shows that, like, I struggle with certain things spiritually. I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect Christian. Like, I will never say that I am. Like, there are a lot of things that contradict each other, even in the picture. That's the whole point. It's a beautiful struggle. I am a beautiful struggle. And I love every piece of me. And this is what I am. Enough of that. Let's get into the interview.
Okay. Okay, cool. Hey y'all, I'm Ashley. I am the official photographer for the I Am Chelsea I Am Enterprise. However, I live in Orlando, Florida now. So we can only get together when I, fly up specifically to work with Chelsea, which is going to be as often as possible. But I've been a photographer for as long as I can remember. Do you remember the camera or the camera?
The camera.
Okay. I got my camera from my mom, who is also a photographer and an artist, and just started shooting and never stopped. So it was amazing when I first moved to New York and I connected with Chelsea, and we've just done some of the coolest projects together, all the way from your what was your first project?
A Beautiful Mess.
A Beautiful Mess.
With the glitter tears.
Yes. No, before that. The one where you threw the papers. And we had the papers falling around you when you were writing.
So that wasn't a project. That was just like a photo shoot.
Okay, so that was our first photo shoot.
That
together.
was our first photo shoot.
Yep. And then we did The Beautiful Mess with the pink vibes.
Yes.
And then now A Beautiful Struggle.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been a ride.
It has been a ride. So, do you remember the first time that I brought this concept to you for this album cover?
Yeah, so I remember a couple of conversations, and it kind of evolved. The first conversation that I recall having about this project was on the 1 train. And I remember it being, we were talking about all the different meanings of the word struggle. And so we were thinking about different visualizations of the term struggle and what that would look like as a representation of it. And so I remember talking about things with like having you wearing chains or having you wearing some sort of like constraints and trying to kind of do it that way. And then I remember kind of moving to more of like the metaphorical struggle, and I brought up the idea of you having like a date with yourself where it's like a table place set with candlelight and a dinner, but it's just you, and it's like you know, dealing with the relationship with yourself and whatever that meant. And then it was from there that we talked about The United States of Tara, which is the HBO show where she's dating herself. And then for that, it was because it was like the different versions of her, it evolved to us talking about the Last Supper and having different versions of you or different aspects of who you are. And I do remember the conversation where I kind of gave you homework and I was like, just, you have to think of all the different parts of what makes you Chelsea. And bring in all the different aspects of your life. And then it was like, it just kind of flowed from there. Like, you were a band member, you are active in the church, and you grew up in the church, and you have your, you know, physical health that's so important to you. And it was all those characters just like poured out, and they just like became part of the project.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and you definitely gave me homework, and I appreciate it, because it made me just really think about the concept, because even the concept of the Last Supper was like, it was important to me because it had like a spiritual aspect, but even I struggle with certain areas of spirituality, and then showing like all these different people that I am that might not necessarily agree with that spiritual background, but it's still who I am.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the struggle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the actual like shoot, let's talk about that, like some of the difficulties like in the editing and all of that.
Yeah. So I tried to make it relatively simple for the shoot, and I tried to, basically what I did was I set up my camera on a tripod, make it easy, and we set up the set, if you will. The tablescape, you know, all of the different parts of the table, you know, there was some wine, there was some liquor, there was some food, there was some COVID cleaning products, like all the things that you were dealing with at the time. We kind of tried to lay that out. And then all your job was to dress in your different characters and then come in and play that character in a certain area of the set. And so that, I think, went really smoothly, like flawlessly, like it was great. And then I remember having a little bit of trouble because you looked so good in every shot, and I had like, you had to pick from like 300, but then even I had to pick from like 50, and I was just like, oh, they're all so good. Like, it was so hard to choose like which shots to use. But then the editing process was really simple too, because I basically just laid you out kind of from center outwards. And so in the center of the shot is you in the robe. And that was like the easiest one to pick. I think that there was just one that like called out to me, and I was just like, this is the shot.
Yeah.
But then from there, it was just kind of placing you. And so all I did was I just took your character out of each of the shots that I loved from the ones you sent me that you loved, and then just kind of placed them where it looked like they were all having dinner together. It really was tedious. You know, it's always hard when you're doing that kind of really serious editing in Photoshop, but it was so fun to see it like coming to life. Like, I was showing my fiance every step of the way, like, oh, I just did one more of her, and look at how good it looks. Like, it was just so exciting to see it like really start to come together.
Yeah. No, I will say, like, the reason I like shooting with you is because like you stretch me. Yeah. And then it's also like a level of comfort as well. Like, because I've shot with other photographers, and I'm like, well, what should I be doing with my arms? But like, you give me exact instructions. Like, this is just how you should look. So.
And for the record, when I get behind the camera, I do the exact same I have no idea what to do with my hands. But when I'm, you know, the one shooting the pictures, it's really easy to say, this looks crazy or this looks good. And a lot of times it doesn't feel comfortable for you, but when I show you, like, this is this pose that you hated because you felt so uncomfortable, like, you're like, oh yeah, it looks great. Like, it's just how it translates in the camera. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts about the cover? Or
I just, you know, as much as it was a passion project for you and maybe like, you know, a challenging thing, like every time you put out a product, I feel like you really just like push yourself even further, and I feel like that's helped me and it's pushed me even further. Like our first album that we did together, like it was hard for me then and it was like challenging then, and then this one was like even more challenging, and then, you know, I just feel like you helped make me a better photographer because you pushed me, you know, and so it's just, I'm so grateful that I got to work with you. I hope we do more projects in the future. I promise I'll fly up whenever I possibly can, because it's just so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun to work with you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Absolutely.